everyone, Candy Zaru here. I am going to talk about really quickly my second birth, natural birth. I've been meaning to do this video since she was born, which was a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, but you get busy and then you think, oh, no one cares. Then you think, it's not really going to help anyone. There's a ton of resources and videos about it out there. But I've actually been looking and there's not a ton of videos about natural birth that come at it from a Hebraic and biblical standpoint. And that's the standpoint that I want to talk about natural birth. I'm not going to get into hypnobirthing or I think like Lamaze classes or all the other methods or anything like that. I'm just going to talk about my experience and what I did and coming at natural birth from a redemptive and biblical way. So my first birth was extremely traumatic. Like it was just traumatic. And I don't want to say the birth necessarily. The birth was rough, but compared to so many other stories, it was easy and normal. But I felt pain. The epidural didn't work. The worst part, truthfully, was that I was just so fearful. I was just so afraid of the pain, and I felt like I was like this the whole time. And I did have a 4th degree tear, which if you're a guy, I mean, just don't even check out. But if you're a woman, not to give like horror stories or whatever, but it is a tear when you tear your perineal basically back to your butt crack. And it takes the longest to heal, and you have to have the most stitches. So that just was not cool. And then that didn't heal correctly, so then I had to go back in and get something snipped, and they had to use like the silver nitrate. It was just, the recovery was the worst part, I think. It took me about 3 months to recover, and that's not common. So if you're pregnant now, it's your first kid, don't even like let that fear get inside of you. That is not common. That is more common when you're just not stretchy down there and you're just like clenched and you are fearful. So don't let that fear set in. But for my second birth, I just knew I wanted something different, and I just felt like, if the Lord is going to give me a baby, like if Yah is going to give me another baby and I'm going to have another successful pregnancy, then this has to be different. Like I don't want to be fearful. I'm not going to be fearful, but I also don't want to like be hypnotized. And I also didn't want to use an epidural. I decided I did want to go natural, but just like grinning and bearing it didn't sound like feasible to me. Which when people say like, oh, I had a baby natural, the majority of people I'm discovering, what they're saying is like, I'm awesome because I grinned and bared it. Some people, however, do like water births. My sister did a water birth, and her labor was like 3 days. And painful for her, but I do think water birthing made it a bit more comfortable when the baby was actually coming out, but that's a side topic. I wanted this birth to be redemptive, and I didn't want to be fearful, and I didn't want to do it in my own strength. So I was going to an amazing church in Louisville at the time, and one of the pastors, they have 2 sets of married couples who co-pastor together. So one of the pastors there, she was actually a doula, and then the other female pastor there was, I don't think she was a doula, but she's a Haitian woman who's had 5 or 6 kids. Like, she's experienced, and she's gone through a traumatic birth, and she's gone through 4 or 5 other wonderful births at home, natural, just with peace. And so just talking to them before I got pregnant really built up in my spirit that I wanted to try to have a natural birth and to do that not in my own strength. And so one of the books that was recommended to me was this. Hopefully you guys can see it. It is, here, I'll move it closer. Can you guys see that? I'm trying to angle it down so the glare isn't as bad, but so it's Supernatural Childbirth, Experiencing the Promises of God Concerning Conception and Delivery, and it is by Jackie Mize. This book, if if you've had miscarriages, if you are infertile, if you are trying to conceive, if you are pregnant for the first time or the 60th time, whatever if you are trying to birth babies or birthing babies or about to birth a baby, get this book. Just get the book. Or if you don't want to have kids but you're a midwife and you work around women who are having kids, be an encouragement. Get the book. She talks about her own journey with fear, with resentment, with bitterness, with infertility, with miscarriage, with not divine conception, but conception that's a miracle. After being told she's infertile, she conceives multiple times, I think. And she just talks about like believing God for his word and like reading scripture from the lens of we are not under the curse. And I'm so glad that not only her, but another resource I use that actually uses this book as well. Kiera Blazers, she is on YouTube. She is at A Heavenly Welcome. That is her YouTube channel. Go check out her stuff. Seriously, it's so good. So she was at my online birth class that I took. I did her birth class. And they both advocate what I advocate now, which is we are not under the curse. If you are in Yeshua, you are not living under the curse. He took that for us, that we don't have to. Of course, you can choose to be fearful, kind of like I was, and you can choose to put yourself under a curse and live under that if you want to, but you don't have to. Like that's what Yeshua did for us. We don't have to live in the curse. So even if you do believe Genesis 3, the fall account, to be saying that women will now experience childbirth in excruciating pain, and that's what she must do to be saved. If you, which I hope all of y'all read that from the Hebrew tongue and study both that in the Old Testament and the verses in 2 Timothy or 1 Timothy, I believe, about women being saved through childbirth. I hope you read that both of those in Hebrew. Please do that, because that's not what that's saying. But even if you do believe that, hopefully reading the New Testament, you understand that Yeshua, those curses, you don't have to live under it. Just like men don't have to literally farm and work for food, they can sit at a desk all day and enjoy their work to eat, and that's not a curse. That's like blessing, really. My husband loves his job. The same thing for women. You could love having your babies, and you can do so without pain. And yes, I did say do so without pain. When I had my second baby, I felt extreme pressure. Like it's like the only way I can describe it, just extreme pressure. I didn't feel the ring of fire. I didn't feel like excruciating pain. I just felt like a super heavy bowling ball was just like pushing out of like a hole, which is literally kind of like what's happening. But it wasn't painful. It just felt like pressure. And yeah, like I was like, wow, I did that with it. Like that wasn't painful. Birthing the placenta probably quote unquote hurt a little bit more than birthing my actual baby and laboring her out. But anyway, this book just is really encouraging, and it just talks about relying on God and his strength and his grace and his mercy and his heart for women and for reproduction. So this is just such a good book. And so I took the classes online at A Heavenly Welcome, so be sure to check that out. And she just really drove these points home that, God can show up in your birth, and, Yah will show up in your birth if you're open to seeing where he is in your birth. And, and everyone may not have a pain-free, fast and easy natural birth like I did. Some women, yes, you will have a 72-hour hard labor, but the end result is the end result. You feel so strong and like a new woman, like when you do this. And I'm not trying to get into like mommy birthing wars. You have a baby, you feel like my baby is here, I birthed this baby, it's awesome. But from my personal experience, having a baby with an epidural and having a baby natural with no medication, no gas, like no whatever, just no IV, nothing, just freaking having the baby, it was just so empowering for me. And it wasn't necessarily how I had the baby that did it, It was my mindset that enabled me to have a baby the way I wanted to have a baby. That was empowering. And I know I have a girlfriend, she's had both of her kids at home. I'm pretty sure one of them was born in her bathtub and the other one maybe was born in her bed, but she birthed both of her kids at home. And it's so empowering for her because she gets to be in her home and she's in control, and it's just so empowering. So yes, you can have all those things, and God can show up in your birth in a C-section, in an epidural, a stillbirth, whatever it is. God is there, and he's for reproduction, and he's for women experiencing this. The second resource that I did want to talk about, I'm assuming if you're having a natural birth, at least 50%, maybe less, but maybe more, at least half of you will be considering not vaccinating or delaying vaccination or choosing an alternative schedule and that sort of thing. So this is a good book to have. This is the vaccine book. This is actually my older edition, but he does have a new, revised, and updated version. And so Dr. Sears, I find, if you're like more leaning toward you don't want to vaccinate and like you just want research to kind of back yourself up, I got something for you. Check out Aviva Ram, and I can email me and I can send you some other really good studies and resources. But if you're just like first time mom, I want to try to have my baby naturally, I don't want to like go super crazy, I kind of think I want to vaccinate, I'm unsure, get this book. I think it's really good for just helping you think through what vaccines are closer to necessary and what vaccines aren't. I am not going to discuss whether or not we vaccinate our kids or what schedule we do or don't do, or if we're delayed or selective or whatever. I don't think that's for YouTube and for public consumption. Really. But I will say that I am 100% parent choice. I don't care if you vaccinate your kid to the CDC schedule or if you don't vaccinate your kid at all and you give your kid dirt to eat and your kid grounds and you make your own baby formula, honey. I am for both, and I'm just for parents being empowered. And that's why I like this book. Dr. Sears, I'm pretty sure he advocates for a delayed schedule. But this book, it gives you a delayed schedule. It gives you the pros and cons of each vaccine. It gives you just a few studies that you can like start to look into and like rabbit trail your way down. So it's definitely a good book. And I find that he's pretty honest about Merck and about some of these other companies that formulate the vaccines and the legal kind of stuff that goes behind it. You know, if Merck formulates a polio vaccine and your kid gets it and your kid dies, you can't really sue Merck, but you can go to the government and try to get a settlement. But the government has no obligation to listen to you. You know, like that's what he kind of discusses. He hits on a little bit in the book. And I know a lot of people just don't know those things, or if they hear that, it's done in such like a fear-mongering way that it's just kind of like, okay, whatever, I'm not going to talk about it. But these are things that are factual, and I just think it's always good to empower parents with facts and then let the Holy Spirit and the parents decide for themselves. So that's all I really wanted to say about natural birth and about my natural birth in God's presence. If you want to hear the actual birth story, I am going to link the podcast episode I did below with Mrs. Kiera Blazer herself of A Heavenly Welcome. It is her podcast, and she invited me on to do the first episode of her season, just a lot of birth stories. And don't just listen to my episode, like listen to my episode, of course, if you want to hear the entire birth story. And then listen to other birth stories, because all of those births are so different. There's C-sections, there's everything. And it's encouraging, and it will build you up if you're pregnant right now and you're about to have your baby. It'll just build you up and give you confidence and help you just to rely and trust on the Lord. So I'm going to stop rambling now. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. If you like this content, be sure to hit the thumbs up, click subscribe, and right next to that subscribe button will be a bell. Go ahead and hit it. Until next time, bye everyone.